Good afternoon, everybody. Are we ready to get started? Fantastic. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Thanks everyone for being here today for our Affordable Housing Committee meeting. The first item on our agenda is public comment. So is there anyone here who would like to speak during public comment? Yeah, Rich, come on up.
Hi, Rich Olenichek from Mountain Housing Opportunities. I'd just like to thank you guys for activating the Lakeshore contingency. With no home funding round, we really need that to move towards closing. And so I just wanted to thank you. With COVID, high costs, high interest rates that you guys all know about, that's set everybody back. And I just wanted to thank you. And then if you guys have any questions about Lakeshore, Addie's not here today, but I'm here to answer questions, okay?
Thanks, Rich.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anyone else? Hey.
Hello, Jeffrey Barton with Mountain Housing Opportunities. Just wanted to thank you all for your support of our down payment assistance program. Late last year, you voted to reassign $300,000 worth of loan assets to the down payment assistance program. And that is allowing us to pursue a CDFI fund application this month. So greatly appreciated. We're hopeful that with this application cycle, we'll be able to leverage your assets into more much needed down payment assistance in our community. And of course, it is a competitive application process, but you know us, we don't give up. So if we're not successful this round, we'll keep trying. So thanks.
Awesome. Okay. All right, anyone else?
We did have two pre-written comments included in your materials, one from Mr. Pierce Holt and another from a representative of VOA.
Great, thank you. And we have copies of those. Thank you. All right. The next item is approval of the December 5th meeting minutes. So moved.
Second.
All in favor of approving, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we've got several presentations. The first is the annual update on the state provided data on Buncombe County evictions and ejections. And Jake's going to help us out with this one.
Absolutely. So ejections and evictions are the same thing. Colloquially, we say evictions, but the courts determine them to be ejections, or that's the legal term. So what we did was pull some state data that is made public every year around October or November, and it is ran on the fiscal year. And we also pulled some United States Census data to sort of look at renter household compositions and also the ejection data that would go alongside that. The first graph we are looking at here are the total number of cases, and the beige being the number of those cases that were granted, meaning the household has left the home as a result of the filed ejectment, with the blue being the remaining cases, which may have been a different case result, like there was a voluntary dismissal, an involuntary dismissal, or something in between. Something that I found pretty interesting while looking at this, we now have, the post-pandemic ejection numbers. So if you're looking at fiscal year 22 going to 2023, we see slightly more ejectments happening than we had pre-pandemic, very slightly, but less of them were granted, which I guess you could name a lot of reasons, but I just thought that was an interesting observation. In 2020, we obviously have the moratorium, so that's why we have such a low dip. And then on this next one here is just a trend over time, starting for a 5-year period in 2020 or 2018, going all the way to June of 23. If we look, at the left-hand side here, we do see the pre-pandemic rates, and then on the right side of the bar, the post-pandemic rates. And we are seeing we're staying around the same area. There are obviously some more spikes, but it's not dissimilar from what we saw in July of 2018. Lastly, here we are looking at comparisons with other counties. So this gray bar here is going to be the amount of renter households in that given county, with the blue being the amount of ejections filed in that county, and the beige being the number of ejections granted. So if we look at Buncombe County, of the 36,000 or so rental homes in the county, of those 6% had a claim filed against them for ejectment or eviction, and 3% of those claims granted. When we look at Orange County, we see 5% were filed, 2% granted. If we look at Wake County, we see 12% filed, 7% granted. And if we look at Mecklenburg, we see 17% filed and 10% granted.
Jake, the gray, I see it's number of renter occupied. Trying to read that, HH.
Households.
Households, okay.
Yep.
Based on some data point from a couple of years ago, okay. Got
Yeah,
it.
this was from 2022's census data.
Okay.
And happy to answer any questions about any of the other graphs or anything of that sort.
Doesn't look like there's any questions, so thanks for the information.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, next up is the 2024 preliminary tax credit applications. Who's got this one?
I've got this one.
All right, okay, excellent. Thank you.
So on January 23rd, the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency released the list of projects that had submitted pre-applications for tax credits and tax exempt bonds. The due date for that was January 19th, so just a little bit before our own application closed. But on the 23rd, they released the list that was included in the materials for this meeting of all the projects across the state. So what we provided here was just a little bit of a summary of the projects and how they would impact our area as far as the number of requests. Statewide, there was 114 projects representing just over 6,000 units. Within the tax credit application process, there are a couple of different regions that they group those applications together competitively. So we are not competing, our projects aren't competing with other projects in other regions of the state, but there's a metro region that includes Buncombe County and some of the other metro regions, west, central, east, and then they also consider rehab projects. In the metro region, there were 40 of those projects, 3 of which are in Buncombe County, and we can take a look at some of those here later in the presentation. We also included in this report the West region. Part of that is because Henderson County is also included in our home consortium, so we might look at those as well. So for the home consortium region, we had 4 projects that were submitted. These are all the 9% requests. In addition to these 9% requests, we also have a 4% tax credit application from Buncombe County projects located in Woodfin. So that's sort of the numbers, the high level view of what they provided as far as the number of pre-applications. To take a look at some of the projects that were in that mix in Buncombe County, we have 3 9% tax credit projects. The first is the Reimagining Beaverview. They still have the existing 2022 9% tax credit award, but have resubmitted to sort of reconfigure that project into multiple phases and working with the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency on the best way to proceed with that one as it relates to their tax credit award. We also have Swannanoa River Village from Pivotal Housing Partners. This one came up on the radar through the tax credit application process. So as soon as staff saw that one, we reached out to the developer and invited them to participate in the Affordable Housing Service Program and submit an application. We did not receive an application, but that doesn't mean that there's not the possibility that they would consider a future cycle. We also have the lofts at Swananoa. This is from previous applicants, WDT Development, so some familiar faces there. They're looking to do 52 units out of Swananoa off of Highway 70. And then for the tax credit that I meant, the 4% tax credit, tax exempt bond request, that's for Rocky River Apartments in Woodfin. We have been in touch with them, and they are submitting an application for the Affordable Housing Service Program for 120 units up in Woodfin. So that project is something else we should be seeing more in the future. Don't have a lot of additional detail on these projects, given that they just released the list from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, but wanted to put that on the radar and let you all know what is happening. As the process continues for tax credits, the due date for the full application is in May.
Excellent. Thanks for the update. Sounds like more good projects coming forward, so look forward to learning more. The next item is the AHSP application submissions.
All right, moving right along. So we received 11 funding requests. This is kind of a small chart to read, but we received 11 requests for non-construction applications totaling just over 1.7 million in the amount that they requested, supporting a proposed total of 992 units. 5 of the applications came from projects that had been previously funded and are returning for new funding for the same projects this year. We do have 6 new requests. And just to let you know, on this chart, we did have one of our applicants reach out and make a correction to the total project cost. So in the previous materials, it said that we had a total project cost of about 5.5 million. So it's now 5.7, just to let you know. If anybody noticed the small change, that was just a typo that needed to be corrected. For the, actually this says non-construction and it should say construction projects. We did receive 12 construction loan requests totaling just above 37 million and representing a proposed 794 units. This includes 8 multifamily construction projects and 4 single family projects. Of those, we have 4 9% tax credits and 3 4% tax credit projects. Gonna slow down to say that clearly. With those LIHTC projects, 4 of those were returning applicants funded from last year's cycle or from previous cycles: Star Point, Redwood Commons, Laurelwood, and the Maribel project. So we do have some projects that are back in the queue. In addition to the construction loan, we also have a request for a construction grant from Helpmate towards the construction of their emergency shelter for survivors of domestic violence, looking to produce 300 units as part of that. So the other part to point out on this chart would also be, we've highlighted in blue any of the projects that are also within the city of Asheville. So that is a bit of a summary of the projects that we've received. Our plan is to begin reviewing those, reaching out to the applicants, getting clarification, sharing those application documents with you all for review, and beginning to sort of schedule out what our next set of meetings would look like to present staff analysis on those. But wanted to give you an overview of what those projects received look like. Answer any questions.
Sorry, it's a super nitpicky request on like these kind of slides to provide us, I guess, some sort of geographic reference point, like a zip code or an address works too, I guess. But
Okay.
just now's the time for me to start knowing exactly where all of them are.
Helpful feedback. Thank you.
You said the, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, the Rocky River 4% project they've submitted an application for tax credits. So there's this other 4% project from the Roars companies, the Pine Lane. That's a new project to us, right?
Yes, it
Has it
is.
submitted for tax credits?
It has not, it was not included in the pre-application list. So that project would need to apply for its 4%
Okay.
Request, which wouldn't be accessible until later in the year if they accept those 4% applications May through October.
Okay, thank you. All right, I don't have any other questions. John? All right, excellent. Let's talk about the committee calendar.
All right. So we typically take a look at this schedule at the end of meetings, but as we are moving into those application review sessions, wanted to take a look at the meeting schedule, particularly in the next couple months, but then also sort of an idea of where we'll be going over the course of the calendar year. The first point would be to look at our next meeting scheduled for March 5th. The plan would be for staff to bring analysis of the non-construction projects forward and present those requests at that meeting. In the meantime, we'll be working with the applicants, sharing again those materials with you, setting up any sessions that we might need to individually with you all as committee members to answer any questions that come up in the process. And then moving forward, consider an additional meeting in March on the 19th to review the returning construction projects. So some of those that have been funded in previous cycles, and that would allow us, as these are more familiar projects, we would have a better chance of getting those to you at that next meeting. Then looking into April, we realize we have spring break is that first week in April when we would typically hold a meeting, just to consider the amount of participation that we might have or your availability. Consider canceling that meeting and postponing it until April 16th. Moving that to the 16th and then do presentations of the construction projects with final consideration at the April 23rd meeting. So the goal would be to have all funding recommendations completed, finalized, and submitted as part of the budget cycle at the end of April. That would give us an additional meeting on the 30th when the budget recommendations would be due if there was additional time needed. So for the next 2 months, staff's suggestion would be to hold the March 5th meeting, add the March 19th meeting, cancel the April 2nd meeting for spring break, and then have 2 meetings in April on the 16th and the 23rd.
I have a quick question. Did we change our March 5th meeting to March 7th?
On the county commission?
Oh, I think we talked about it. What did we do?
From March
Yes.
5th, is because that's the front, the 7th.
We moved it to Thursday the 7th. Yeah.
So you want to move this one too? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
its primary election day, so I think we don't want to have a meeting that day.
Okay.
At the cost of democracy.
And Chairman Newman, what was it? Check with you. I still need to check with you, but I was probably planning on taking my kids out of town that spring break week. If you're going to be here for that week.
This is the week of April 2nd.
Correct.
Right, so, so we're gonna not have a county commission meeting that week too, right?
we-
We did talk about that, didn't we?
We talked about it, but we kept it.
But we did keep it. So we,
For
I
now,
think so.
we kept it.
Yeah.
But I think on this, you're acknowledging that it's spring break week.
correct. But we do have a county
Busy.
commission meeting. When did we do that?
There we go.
Okay.
Should have had our staff make a calendar slide and start from there.
Okay, so, going back to March 5th, so can we move it to March 7th?
I believe that's possible. We can
Is that possible for y'all?
think so.
Okay. And then,
We can confirm that.
we'll cancel the April 2nd, so, yeah, the schedule looks good to everyone, with the one change to the beginning of March. Okay, sounds good. And
And so we would still have time and the opportunity to call an April 30th meeting if necessary.
Mhm.
And then for the rest of the schedule through the end of this fiscal year, we take a look at on-time data as it's available. Also continue with our quarterly updates and as we did last year, start scheduling updates from other departments that might be working on affordable housing or affordable housing adjacent work.
Okay, and one other, just, for sort of discussion, consideration. One thought's also like, once we make the recommendations on budget funding, that maybe we think about the idea of going ahead and taking those recommendations to the county commission for approval, maybe a bit sooner than we have in the past, to go ahead and get the commission to endorse them so that the different, groups that are receiving funds would just have, kind of closure on that instead of have that hanging out there longer. Is that something the staff are suggesting we take a look at?
Yes.
Great. All right, so that might happen in, maybe if we do our decisions in April 23rd, April 30th, and maybe that first meeting in May, maybe the commission would go ahead and do that then, as opposed to like late June. All right. Okay, what's next?
And then starting in July, we would want to pick up with our regular schedule of appointing a chair and vice chair for this committee. And then moving into the fall, as we've done before, considering the Affordable Housing Service Program policies, any changes, adjustments, lessons learned, that we could review those through a series of fall meetings, have our quarterly updates, as well as some information about our participation in the home program and fair housing. We've penciled in some of these items knowing that they may shift based on the information that's available at the time, or if we have project changes that come up, and would be happy to take any requests or suggestions for items that you'd like to keep on in the future.
Right, sounds good. So we move on to the Housing Coalition.
And I have the next one as well. So the North Carolina Housing Coalition provides county profiles. They publish these every couple of years. These are outlined on their website, nchousing.org. So they provide some statistics gathered from things like the American Community Survey, occupational employment statistics from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. They look at HUD data, as well as data from the North Carolina Judicial Branch, just to compile comparisons on things like living wage, fair market rents, how many households are cost burdened. So we included the Buncombe County profile in the materials, but those are also, all of the profiles are available on the Carolina Housing Coalition's website. Kind of a key element in that was that they identified 1.2 million households in the state are considered cost burden, meaning that they are spending more than 30% of their income each month on housing. In Buncombe County, that amounts to a little over 30,000 households, or about 30% of Buncombe County is cost burdened. The other data point that they highlighted was that at the moment, Asheville shows the highest increase in fair market rents in the 2018-2019 period through the 2023 fair market rents that were published. So there was a 69% increase over that time period. That affects the Affordable Housing Service Program in the sense that we use that fair market rent as our cap. So as that goes up, the cap for rents does increase. But we also consider the cost burden on the household as part of the process of calculating those rents. So the goal is to have any of the projects supported, the rents they are charging are below 30% of that household's income. So while the upper limit is continuing to increase, we are trying to, through our policies and procedures, keep that in check.
All right. Thank you for the updates. Any questions, commissioners? Okay. Got next up are several reports.
Good afternoon. So I'm here to report on the community development block grant funding from NC Commerce. This is our overall information sheet, which hasn't changed. We received $400,000 that we're utilizing for home repairs. We just did our annual report, was submitted in January. And happy to say that we now have our CDBG affirmatively furthering fair housing choice administrative plan in place as of January 1st, which will carry us through 2026. So we've got that outlined. And that'll be divided into quarters with activities for each quarter for each of the 3 years. So. Okay. So within the process, we are now underway with contracting, and getting the program established has taken a while. Working with Commerce has been a process within itself. And so now we're really getting it ready to roll with this one. So which will be really nice to have it established and have the process underway. So our subrecipient is Asheville Habitat for Humanity, and they have their application was for $200,000 that will be invested to help and improve the health and safety of a minimum of 40 homeowners who are under 70% AMI. And these will all be outside the city of Asheville. And we are looking to NC Commerce for an extension for another year, which would allow us to actually amend a contract and do another 20 homes with that. So we'll see. Last time it took 4 months to hear back from them. So we'll wait and see where that goes. Right. And so now for our ARPA funding. This program is up and running, I'm excited to say, and the program is well established. We've got the process going. It's also a $400,000 grant that came from the county. So this is our general overall information. Nothing has changed here. We have not had any issues or roadblocks, I'm happy to say. This one was prioritizing investments up to $30,000 for each of the properties that were to be improved. And we've got too many buttons here. All right. So for the ARPA, we are now at the place of getting their subrecipients, grantees, reports in from Mountain Housing Opportunities and Asheville Habitat for Humanity. And so the draws are underway. And we have Habitat's contract is for $280,000 to do improvements to at least 22 homes. And MHO's commitment is for 4 home repairs, utilizing the maximum investment up to $30,000 for each of those homes. And so we are underway, we're monitoring those, and we're in the process of looking through all of our draw requests for their funding. So as I said, Mountain Housing is committed to doing a minimum of 4 home, improving safety for those. And 2 are underway. And actually at this point, they're probably completed, but this was as of January 15th, when the reports are due the middle of each month. Asheville Area Habitat has completed 4 home repairs. They have an additional 2 underway, and another 2 scopes of work are ready for the next 2 homes to be repaired. That is it. Any questions on those 2 programs?
Don't think so. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon again. We will be going over our HSP quarterly progress reports and goals. For our 2023 contracts that are still active, we are looking at our affordable housing studies. As of mid-January, there is about 64% of the DFI contracts open, and they have expended $117,000 to date. And we are now looking at our current AHSP contracts and grants that are underway. We have had some movement on most of our grants. We have not seen reimbursement requests for PODAIR Emma and On Track. After speaking with individuals from PODAIR, it was indicated that they do plan to submit a reimbursement request soon and to have like half of the grant in that one request. And then On Track has indicated some staffing shortages and just trying to train people to provide these classes online. I mean, these classes in person and get the classes online for individuals. And for our bond contracts, the commitments are made. Nothing has been signed yet, and we are waiting for those to go to contract. Here are the goals we are all very familiar with. If you are new, the county's goals for affordable housing include increasing the supply of affordable housing for rent, increasing the supply of affordable housing for homeownership, especially for BIPOC households, preserve the supply of naturally occurring affordable housing, support activities that achieve functional zero homelessness, and support activities that encourage the use of all vouchers. There are some quantifiable measures tied to these, mainly being that Buncombe County will impact 2,800 to 3,150 affordable housing units by 2030. And these are broken out through different categories through rental units that are constructed, home ownership units that are touched with county money, repair units, and also some goals toward middle income housing so that 80% to 120% AMI range. Since we have last met, this goal has not changed. No further commitments have been made by the county as with regards to additional rental units for households under 80% AMI, and no further units have come online since we have last reported this out to you all. This goal has also not changed since the last time we met, with no additional commitments made toward any LIHTC projects since the last time we have all met and discussed these goals, with no additional units coming online between that time as well. For rental units for households at 30% AMI and below, we are the same as last time. So this would be Compass Point Village coming online, and I am blanking on the other one, but the goal has not changed as of the last report. And there is a slight change in ownership units where we had another down payment assistance or maybe 2 down payment assistants processed. So we went from 28 completed to 30 completed without the commitment changing. So that is about the extent of that. And we had a few more emergency repairs just through the fiscal year 2024 AHSP contracts that are active. So maybe an addition of 15 to 20 more. Nothing too significant moving the needle.
I guess I'd like to
Oh, absolutely.
just pause on emergency repair for a moment. I think perhaps others in the room have heard just from some of our service providers that do that work in the community that they're suggesting there's like a bigger need, a unique need that's larger than I think the past few years. I didn't know if the staff had heard anything or seen any data or evidence to suggest that there's a bigger need than there was even just a couple years ago. You're seeing anything different?
Yeah. The one thing I have noticed is that since we have revised policies so that houses could have deeper repairs afforded to them without a lien, and pretty consistently on every draw, we are seeing each of our providers take advantage of providing these deeper repairs without a lien. As far as waiting lists of each organization and like the amount of people contacting them, I don't know offhand, but it does seem the investment is needed and is being taken advantage of.
There are wait lists
Yeah.
for the organizations that are helping us in this process.
How do those waivers compare to previous years? You know, and
It will vary between different organizations. You know, as part of our application review for FY25, that's sort of one of our questions is, where's your waiting list at now? And for some organizations, it stays pretty steady. For some organization, it fluctuates up, mostly up and never really goes down, right? But either steady and or an increase for certain organizations.
You know, I don't think we need to like constantly like tweak all these different goals, but going back to the number of new construction units at less than 30%, you know, like that may be one that we didn't set it quite the right place, right? It's like, we already met it, right? I mean, a lot of these still have to be actually built, but they're financed, there's real
Yeah.
projects. So I do think as we kind of go forward, you know, we should reset that because I mean, it's great that we've come out of the gates and a bunch of great projects that have a lot of these units, but as you're getting more light tech projects coming online, they're going to have a lot of these, right? So
Yes.
I would be supportive of it. Let's go ahead and, we're so early in this process. Let's go ahead and reset that at some point so that the community understands, like, we're not going to stop doing more of these. Like, we're going to do as much of this as we can. So,
And applicants too.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So we could, if we've got this many in the first couple of years, maybe whatever, we should double it or triple it. Okay. So. All right. Well, any other questions about where we are at on goals? All right. Thanks for the updates and benchmarks. Great.
Absolutely.
Lakeshore Village.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm presenting today about Mountain Housing Opportunities Lakeshore Villas project, which is one of our bond-funded projects for fiscal year 24. As a reminder, the project, the total AHSP commitment is around 3.3 million. And this amount was amended back in September when we brought a request to the committee and to the Board of Commissioners to replace their second COVID recovery fund allocation with AHSP loan funds. And as part of that budget amendment recommendation, the committee requested that MHO and staff advocate for reallocation of available home funds to help fill the gap, the funding gap that they had, the existing one. So we just wanted to provide a couple of updates since then. So the Home Consortium has not undergone a reallocation process, which has prevented a chance to advocate for additional funds to be allocated to the project. Our staff has requested more information about why a reallocation process was foregone, but has not received a response from the city. The project's permanent lender is now First Citizens. Dogwood Health Trust is still part of the project. They're serving as a mezzanine lender in addition to providing grant funds. Also, project costs have gone up since their request in September by approximately 1.2 million. MHO has increased their deferred developer fee by $420,929 to accommodate these increased costs, but their pro forma is indicating a remaining gap of $299,702. And finally, through the Army Corps of Engineers wetlands permitting process and HUD's environmental assessment, which is required for their home funds, it was found that the trees on the site could act as a habitat for northern long-eared bat, gray bat, and the tricolored bat. And so because of these bat species are federally recognized as endangered, MHO is restricted to tighter timelines for tree clearing. While the two assessments have slightly different deadlines noted up here, the sooner of the two requires that they do their tree clearing by March 31st of this year. So MHO has initiated the closing process with the county to meet the restricted deadlines for tree clearing, but has requested the committee consider an additional financial assistance from the county to close their funding gap. So we're bringing that to you all today. The request for committee action is for the committee to consider recommending to the full board a $299,702 in additional AHSP allocation from bond funds for Lakeshore Villas. And I can answer any questions that you have.
Okay, and just on the tree clearing, so that needs to be sped up to avoid doing site work.
Yeah,
So it's actually speeding it up rather than slowing it down is what sort of that's necessitating. Otherwise, it would be further delayed if you had to wait till the
Yes.
next season or whatever, right? Okay.
So
yeah,
it's,
bat season ends March, so they gotta do it before, so I think last day of March, something like that.
if they can't do it before March, then they'll have to wait until the fall of next year.
Yeah.
Or sorry, the fall of this fall.
Okay. And so the Home Consortium did meet, and I will tell you, we tried. But that didn't come together. So if, so this is the final gap for the project. Like if this comes into place, whether it was through home or whether it's from the bonds, this is the last remaining kind of identified need. The financial closing can be completed with these funds in hand.
Yes.
Is that right? Final request, right? Final. All right.
We have received like a balanced pro forma from them, which if they were to get this additional allocation, then it would be balanced.
Okay. Well, I think it was good to engage with, the Home Consortium. They did have these unallocated funds, great project, I'll support it. So, but I think it's become apparent that's just going to play out over a longer period of time. So with that knowledge in hand and the need to get the project moving, I'm supportive of it.
Yeah. Same.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend the full amount to the full board.
And second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks, Clayton. All right. Any announcements? All right. I think we've worked our way through all of the items on the agenda, so we will be meeting again. Next meeting is, we just talked about it.
March 7th.
March 7th. All right. We're adjourned. See you then.
Yeah. Sure.